Listo, y vamos a comenzar. Entonces, primero que nada, voy a hacer desde cero el proyecto como tal para que más o menos se vayan dando idea. Traten de seguirme. Porfa, si no tienen el mute, pónganse el mute para que no estemos así como que oyendo mucho feedback y mucho ruido. ¿Va? De momento, si van a hablar, nomás quitan el mute, dicen lo que tengan que decir y luego lo cierran o me pueden decir por el chat. Ahora sí, vamos a darle. Primero voy a compartir mi pantalla que está por acá. ¿Ven mi pantalla?
Sí.
Perfecto. Tenemos a alguien más que entró con el micro abierto. Denme un momento. Está. Bien. Vamos a ver. Primero que nada, ¿quién es? No, estamos bien. Bueno, vamos a abrirnos primero que nada Visual Studio Code. Muy bonito todo. Aquí lo tenemos. Esta es una cosa de React que estamos haciendo. Y voy a cerrar la carpeta. ¿Ok? Para tenerlo todo así normal. Y como vimos la vez pasada, vamos a crear el project JSON. So, I'm going to switch to English right now, and I'm going to try to go as slow as I can. If you don't understand me, remember, just tell me right away so you don't lose any knowledge. So, well, the very first thing that I want to do is that probably I want to create a folder. I'm going to use my terminal over here. Admit it. So I'm going to go to my repos folder. That is the one that I always use. So cd repos. And in there, I'm going to create a new folder using the command mkdir, my REST API. Because we're going to be creating a REST API right now. So there's my folder. Then I go into it. But of course, you can do this part that I just did, the create in the folder and going into the folder. You can do that visually. You can just go to Windows and go to create new folder, then double click in there and you go to your empty folder and then open that empty folder into Visual Studio Code. But I mean, it makes no sense. If we can do it in the terminal, let's just do it right away. So anyway, now I have my folder that is absolutely empty. If I go ls, you're going to see that it's absolutely empty. So let's start with npm init. That is the way that we're going to be creating our REST API project or a Node project, because there are several projects that we can create. They are based on Node. And in this case, we're going to create a REST API. So yeah, the same way that we did last class. We're basically just going to enter everything unless you want to add a license or your order or something like that. So basically, yes. And if we created everything just fine, we can now go to open folder. That is repos somewhere, repos here, and my REST API over here. And npm init what creates a file. It created the package.json file. So are we clear so far?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to create a new file.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
could you record the class or is
It is recording already.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, don't worry. Okay, so since we are using modern JavaScript, we're going to create basically variables that we're not going to be using var. We are going to be using const and let, because those are the legit ways to call a field or a variable. So let's dive in, dive right into it, like very fast. So it's const because it's going to be like a constant, but it's not like old-fashioned constants that they can change their value in runtime. We can actually be changing some stuff. But in this case, I'm going to be calling express. And I'm intentionally going to have an error. Then I'm going to require express because our RESTful API exists thanks to the module express. Okay. If we don't use this one, I mean, there are some alternatives, but the most popular and the more like official way to create REST APIs is using the express module. And at this moment, I just reference it. I just require it. I just imported it, but I'm not actually using it. In order to use it, I need to just go like const app or a app and then express. And as you can see, in the past, it was like this. And these letters were like grayed out. But now that I'm using it, they go to the color white. Why? Because now I'm using that specific variable. Now, I'm purposely going to be doing this. Like this is the intention. If I just run like npm server or node server, I'm going to have an error. Why?
We haven't import express.
That's correct. That's totally correct. So in that case, actually you can start like building all your application and then try to run it. And Node is going to tell you what thing are you needing, what thing you're missing. Okay, actually, if you, yeah, you can just see over here, cannot find module express. So, okay, so let's install this thing. So npm install and then express. And again, I like to use -- save or -- save. So it is registered in my package. So when I move this file to some other computer, I can just like do not pass not modules. And in the other computer, just run npm install and have everything downloaded right away. So I'm going to hit it right there and we're going to wait. And now I have my package JSON lock. That is where I'm going to store everything that I use with -- save. And then we have the server. So clear. Now, if I run it, it's working, but it does nothing. Okay. So let's change that a bit. The second thing that we need in order to this thing to work is to be able to parse a body. What do parse means? When I use parse, what do I mean?
Convert.
Convert, exactly that. So the thing that we want to do right now is that make our API able to send and receive the same language, the same way to speak from one side to the other. Basically establish a communication language between the endpoints. And that's going to be JSON. By default, in RESTful APIs, you're going to be using JSON. You can totally use another string. You can totally use XML, but by default, or the most recommended is use JSON. So in order to use JSON, we're going to do this thing. We're going to go const again, and then body parser, and then require. Oh, I have another queue. Require, and now body parser. Very good, Tobarish. Again, we are not using it just yet, but we're going to use it right away. So I'm going to comment that express is the module that enable us to create a RESTful API. And the body parser, it allows us to use JSON back and forth between the API and the client. Now I'm going to be using const course, the same thing, require. And this part over here, it is mandatory, guys. You can't skip these packages. Course is to allow our REST API to be accessed from anywhere. And I'm also going to be specifying that it's called cross origin. That means that if you are in your cell phone or if you are in whatever other place in the earth with another IP address and another domain, and your API is hosted in localhost, you can still hit it. Okay, so this one is very important. If we don't use CORS, you are not going to be connected from somewhere else. And then just in this case, I'm going to leave it like that. Eventually, we're going to talk about the database, but let's just leave it like that just for a second. Okay, so we have a constant that is express, and then I need another constant that is going to be const port. And in this case, I like to use the port 40K, but you can use whatever port you want if you're not using it. The default port for SQL is 1433. The default port for MySQL is 3306. For regular plain default web page is the 80. So you can use whatever port you want on your computer. Just make sure that it's not being used and that the port is open. Is that clear?
Yep, clear.
Thank you. Okay, now let's actually start building something here. Okay. Now we're actually going to start using the app. Hold on a sec. Let me just see something real quick. So now we're going to be creating something very, very simple. That is our rules. We have the import spheres, then we need to create our connection rules. And the first connection rule that we're going to be using is basically specifying who can connect and who cannot connect and how they're going to connect to our API. So we're going to be using app, and now it turned into white, which means that we can actually start using some methods from Express. App is the instance of Express. So now Express, I want to app.use. And in this case, I want you to please use body parser over here, .json. And then I'm going to be limiting this thing. We have it like this with this line over here because they are going to change in the next version the way that this thing is referenced. But now it's going to work. So basically, I want to add a rule that my app, my Express app is always going to be using JSON as communication method. Okay. Now I'm going to be saying something here in the parameters. I'm going to say like limit, and I'm going to add just a 100 megabyte limit. Okay. Very important thing. When you send a request to the internet, that request has a size. It can be a very small request. It can be a very big request. For example, have you ever used torrent?
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, obviously. So there are two main differences between the direct connection, like when you just click download and you download a file that is maybe 2 gigabytes. Okay. So you have this file or this ISO that is 7 gigabytes being downloaded in your computer. And it's just fine. Okay. It's just a bunch of bytes that they go downloading. However, if something bad happens, if you lose the connection or simply something gets corrupted in there, you're going to have bad information. Maybe your ISO is not going to work. Maybe your game, your software, your whatever file is not going to work because that's a lot of information. And of course, it's unstable, and it is very slow. Now, with torrents, you have requests and you have responses, but they are very little. That's why in the past they called it bit torrent, because you have little bits of the file being sent into the internet from to another computer, and then from that computer to another one, and from that computer to your computer. Okay, so if you limit your request to something lighter, it's going to be easier for the API to manage them. So it's not going to get all cluttered and not saturated. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. So we're going to be app.use and then body parser again. And then we're just going to be URL encoded because we don't want to, or we want to use to be able to send, like acentos and that kind of stuff. And then we're going to be like extended true. And then limit. The same thing, that is 100 megabytes. Okay. Again, so we can make our request smaller and easier to handle from our application. So pretty much that's it. Of course, now we need to use, of course. Remember that everything that we put in here, we need to use it. And we use it using the word use. Try to say that 3 times. So basically, we have use body parser, and we already are using expressing here. So the thing that we're missing is app.use course. And the nice thing is that we don't need to add anything else. We just say, you know what, I'm going to use course. So that's it. And that's it. It's going to take care about all the accesses from different origins by itself. So now we need to add the rules of connection. Keep up with me with this time because this one is a little bit weird, okay? App.all. So for all the endpoints that we're going to have. And the very first thing that I want to say is that I want to allow any computer in the world to be connected to my API. That's why I use this asterisk over here. So it doesn't matter if it is 192 or something in localhost, or if it is from the internet, I'm allowing any computer from any IP address to connect. Okay. Now, function, rec, res, and the middleware next. Okay. Very, very simple. Just like that. And now we need to add 3 rules and the middleware. That in this case is just res.header. And then access. Oh, a lot of S's. Control, allow, origin. Which means the same thing, that we're going to be allowing any connection from any computer in the header, because remember that requests have a body and have a head, and they have a body. Okay, in the body we add the data, and at the head we add the connection rules. Don't worry a lot about this thing just yet. Okay, don't worry a lot about the whole access control in the course. Just have it in your APIs, because the way to understand them is actually using it. Okay, so a long story short, these are just rules to allow any computer or limited computers to connect to our API. Is that clear?
Yes.
Thank you. So basically, we're going to be changing some stuff. I just copy and pasted this line 3 times because we're going to be changing a little bit the rules, methods, and headers. In the head, again, in the body, we have the data, but in the head, we have the rules to connection. So I'm going to specify that I'm going to be using JSON by using in my client the header content type and the methods. Which are the HTTP methods?
Get.
Yeah. What else?
Post, put.
Yeah, basically put, get, post, delete, and options. Very important thing. Okay. So again, don't confuse a lot. Don't try to get it like exactly like to the point because it's going to be a little bit confusing. But these are basically rules. With this, we allow all IP addresses. With this, we allow all the HTTP verbs. And with this, we allow the use of the header content type. Very, very simple. Okay. Now let's actually be building something over here. Okay. Now let's create our very first endpoint, the very first thing that we're going to be able to consume. Okay. Very, 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 very simple. Now, but before I continue, I'm going to give you a very, very little assignment. Okay. Very little assignment, 10 minutes assignment. Okay. The only thing that I want you to do, guys, is try to research yourselves what we are missing in here. We are missing two things. Of course, we are missing the endpoint and we're missing something else to make a REST API to function. I'll be back at 11 with 10 minutes. Okay. And I hope that you already finished. Well, 11 with 10 minutes here in Chihuahua, that means that is like 12 with 10 minutes over there at Monterrey. Okay. Is that clear?
Let's see this clear.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So I'm going to turn off my part of the call. Just a second. I will be with you in 10 minutes. Do it. Try to do it. See you guys. You there, guys? Do you exist?
Yes, we're here.
Good. Okay, so did you find out?
Yes.
Okay, hold on a sec. Alonso, you there?
Yes.
Make me host. You were the host for a second, so make me host. Make me host so I can share the screen. Thank you.
Now.
So,
Yes.
so there we go. Hold on a sec. The HTTP header was missing, right? Yes and no. I mean, we have some stuff that everything that we send to the internet is HTTP, okay? And we're missing the rest than the send. Yes, it's always the salt. Well, the salt is yes, but no. I'm glad to know that you kind of have an idea of what you're doing here, okay? So just bear it with me, okay? Let me see if I can be not so black because they can shut me in the street in the US. So yeah, I think you can see me clear right now. So anyway, the very first thing that we're missing in here is this thing over here that is next. Next is just a middleware that is going to help us to work and to give the next step once that we hit an endpoint. We hit the endpoint and then we obtain the result. That's with next. But we are not going to be using rec just yet because who is doing the requests? Who's making the request? The clients. That means our applications, our web applications, our mobile applications. So pretty much like that. So far so good. Now we are missing something very important. That is the actual endpoint. The endpoint is whatever we're going to be hitting from our client. So in this case, I'm going to be doing this app dot. Then we need to say the port. And actually Visual Studio is going to autocomplete you a lot. But in this time, I want to use get because I'm going to use get, okay? So basically, this one is going to be just the slash, which means that when I hit localhost 40K, this is going to be the default route, the default answer that I'm going to give to any customer, to any client that wants to connect. Now, the first parameter is the URL. The second parameter is going to be, as usual, a function, okay? A very simple function that is going to have two parameters, rec and res. We are not going to be using rec when we use get, but I like to put it always so I remember that I'm always going to be having rec and res, even in get, even though we technically don't have a request inside a get. That's a little bit confusing, but anyway. So now at the response, when I hit that endpoint, I'm going to be receiving something, and we do it with send. It's just res, that means response, dot send. So send me this response. And in this case, I don't want to do any complex. I'm just going to say goodness. Just like that. And this is an endpoint, okay? And with that, we can actually kind of start making it work. But at this moment, we're still missing one very important thing that someone mentioned it over here. Okay, Jose wanted to say it. The HTTP response, yeah, probably not. The font size and zoom bigger, probably. Yeah, that's better. I hope that you can read it. Can you read it now? Is it clear?
Yeah, it's way better.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too big, but yeah, why not? So we have the res.send, and then at this point, if we run our server with node server.js, we're going to have some error over here. Oh, we don't have cores. That's another mistake. So, well, you know the drill, right? So npm, I'm going to be adding body parser to. Oh, never mind. And then I'm going to be adding course. Body parser is incorrect because it's like this. So I'm going to be adding body parser to, very important thing. And then I can just run like node server, and I have no errors, but it's not running. When you have a web service in Node, when you have a REST API in Node or in .NET Core or microservices in Ruby or whatever, you need to make sure that the services listen the clients that want to access them, listen to external applications that might be hitting our server. And how do we do that thing? In Express, it's very simple. It's not other thing than just go to app again. App is our instance of Express, and then dot listen. What does listen means in Spanish? Escuchar. Exactly that. It's going to be listening. It's going to be running and waiting, listening for responses. So the first parameter that I need to pass to listen is my port that I already have over here is the 40K. Now we're going to go to add a new parameter that is a function as always, and then the body of the function in here. And then I'm just going to say something like console.log. And then I'm going to add something like my app is running at the port, and then I don't know, something like, the port. And now let's try to run it. And if it's working, you're going to receive that message. Now, if you pay attention, you will realize that actually nothing else is happening. It's just waiting. When we didn't have this thing, keep it in mind again, I'm just going to comment it just so you see the effect. But when we didn't have the listen, our application just repeated itself. Just like run it and stop and run it and stop and run it and stop, because you don't have like anything else running. You just have your code being scoped, or you just have the code being analyzed by Node, but it's doing nothing. That's why in the exact moment that when you run it, you go back to your prompt. The prompt is this thing, your command line. But when you actually uncomment this thing, and when you use the listen and you run your server, now your app is actually running. Okay? Is that clear?
Yes.
Good. Now, if we go to our browser over here, and I click something, and I go something like localhost, and my port that is 40K, remember that we specify 40K in here, I'm going to have goodness because I have these things. So my response is goodness over here. Now, I didn't have to add anything else because I have this slash. Is that clear? Kinda? You're sharing by VS Code. Let me then share the whole desktop. I think desktop 1. Okay, are you seeing my Visual Studio there, and are you seeing probably my Chrome in here? Are you seeing both?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, so pretty much now there is that. Okay. We didn't see the browser. Listen for any request to get into that port. Into that port, but more importantly, into that port and into that URL. Because remember that our API must be able to answer different requests at the same time. So let's say that I want to create something like app.get hello blue. And then maybe I'm going to have something like another greeting, another string. I just copied this one 2 times, okay? So in this one is going to be hello blue. And this one is going to be called hello red. Remember, these are URLs. So hi red. Very important thing. If you just try to run this thing just like this, and you just try to go to the URLs, it's not going to work. Because right now our API is working. It is running right now. So in order to make it work, we need to stop it and then run it again. So it's updated. So now it's going to be making a little bit more sense. This one is the default endpoint. That's the keyword, endpoint. Yeah, we're hitting the port, but the default endpoint is established with the slash. If I want to hit this endpoint over here without hitting these two, I'm just going to be writing the URL that is slash hello blue. And now I have hello blue here. And if I want to hit the other endpoint, it's literally just taking this URL over here, put it in here, and we have hi red. Does that make sense? Yes, that's totally great. Okay, so pretty much that's it. Pretty much that's what you have to do to make this thing work. So I have an assignment for you, okay, that you're going to deliver the next class. Please make an endpoint that return your full name. Super simple. Create an endpoint that has your full name. I'm already going to be sending this file over here. I'm going to send you the server.js here on Slack, so you have it, so you can analyze it, and you can have a base from the one start building. Okay, is that clear?
Okay, it is.
Good. Okay, guys. So I will make sure that now finally we upload all the videos, because we have a lot of videos and we have to upload all of them. So it's going to be on the YouTube channel, but when they are there, I'm going to give you the link. Now I'm going to switch to Spanish just a little bit. Básicamente eso va a ser todo, chavos, por el día de hoy. Hagan el assignment que les pedí y cualquier duda estamos en el Slack o en WhatsApp. ¿Va? Cuídense mucho, trabajenle duro y nos vemos al ratillo. Chido a todos.
Nos vemos. Saludos.
Bye.